Footy's back. That's right. G'day, I'm Harry Mackay. No, I'm not Harry Mackay. I'm Jaymz Clements. And this is the AFL Today show, your new favourite one-stop shop for all things footy, a.k.a. the greatest game on earth, in the world, AFL footy. Love it. Joining me for this, oh my God, we've finally gotten there, the Round Zero opening round recap show. That's right, we're doing these on Sundays to keep it all fresh, which I love. We have local weirdos, AFL experts, footy nuffs, basically. It just sort of says it all. We've got the stats guy over there. What's going on, stats guy?
Oh, you've summed it up pretty well, Jim. I'm just happy Carlton and Sydney won this week. Don't have to have a grumpy Sunday with you two. But yeah, very happy to be here and loving that footy's back.
I like the idea of Grumpy Sunday. That should be just the Sunday show. It's Grumpy Sunday.
It could be. I feel like you two would tick that few boxes. But Carlton and Sydney won, so I think you're all good today.
And we also have local Sydney resident nuff lunatic weirdo Alex Donnelly down there. Alex, what's going on?
Ex-Sydney resident now calls Melbourne home. Literally the perfect weekend for me. The Swans won, Arsenal won, and Collingwood got smashed. It's a great weekend.
Nice. Not bad. Very nice. But of course, we're going to talk all things opening round today. We have a setup that we do and we'll be doing for every AFL Today show, right? We've got Vent Sesh, which is basically the biggest thing that's on probably my mind, but of course the other guys as well. And we're going to wrap the games, of course. We've only got 4 to run through this week, but we'll sort of just talk out the biggest moments, what we've taken away from them. Full credit to the boys, a.k.a. the best team of the week, the best on ground of the week, which is 3 votes. Who was the best player that we saw all weekend? Old mate, no mates, who doesn't have any mates, and why I can't stand. Why I can't stand. I'll tell you what.
We've got 2 vent sessions into this.
I know. I feel like
it's basically
Jim's
two vents.
I reckon half of this is going to be a vent show every week, every Sunday.
I feel like we're going to line up on a few of them after this weekend, though, so it's good.
Yeah. I think the why I can't stand's a little bit different to the vent sesh because it can be literally something small or it can be something big. Whereas the vent sesh is literally just let me loose. And then we'll have a quick, I think we've got Stats Boy jumping in very quickly for a quick SuperCoach thing because even though round 0, opening round, didn't really count in terms of your actual scoring for SuperCoach, it does give us that first round look at 8 teams and some of the big names in there. And there were some big eggs, but there are also some big wins. So
absolutely,
we'll get into that. But first off, let's do it. Footy's back. Can you smell it? I can. Tell you what. Vent sesh. Footy's back, gentlemen. I'll tell you what. But also, opening round. How do we feel about this entire concept? The more it sat with me, the more angry I got. And I'm always I'm basically like the Hulk. Like the secret is I'm always angry. Like they call me the Ginger Hulk. Just call me Rulk.
I think that was Hulk. Food poisoning, Jim, when you were green last week, not being the Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. Tough scenes there. But I'll tell you what, this taster I feel like of opening round, as good as the footy was, I feel like the concept has been an absolute fizzer because they've completely missed a trick. Because for the simple idea, I feel for like the other 10 teams. Like I remember I just saw somebody put up on the internet, you know, that thing out there, a ladder.
It doesn't make a difference right now.
Like when only 8 teams have played, a ladder doesn't matter. What are you talking about? Nobody needs a ladder. A ladder doesn't matter. And if you have a ladder after a round that doesn't matter, guess what? That round doesn't matter. You've gone and completely cooked this, Andrew Dylan Gillen. And I feel like literally just the simple idea of there's no other reason that they sort of didn't have the other 10 teams play beyond. Wait, no, there are no reasons. It's very weird because I get the idea of having your teams up north. That's fine. You've done a great job. We're going to go and try to get in there while the NRL's. Oh, wait, no, the NRL's playing as well. Like, what have they done? They completely cooked it. And quite seriously, I'm just like, it makes no sense to either just have, all 18 teams open your season. You could even call it round 1. Like, I don't know. It's incredible gear sometimes. Or just have all 18 teams play up north. I think that's the easy fix. Call it opening round, send them all up north. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that you've got GWS hosting, you've got Gold Coast hosting, you've got Sydney hosting. That doesn't actually matter. If you want to make it a big thing, go, right, we'll bite the bullet. Weird team from over here, Western Bulldogs. Guess what? You're playing a home ground in Greater Western Sydney. They'd have to go, okay, can we please have some more money? And like as simple as that, right? That's all that matters when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I think for the other 10 teams and their fans, I think this is just a weird slap in the face to the start of the footy season of like, footy's back, but only for some of us. So I found that very weird. And the more that the weekend went on, I've just gotten angrier at the concept. Gentlemen, that is the vent sesh. How do we feel?
I'll agree with you. You're spot on, Jim. I think I talked about it during the week. I can't remember if it was on the show or not, but you got a perfectly good Sunday and a perfectly good Monday. It's like when they were scheduling it, they forgot there was a public holiday going on. Public holidays pretty much all across Australia work really well for AFL. They get big crowds, especially in Melbourne with Easter Monday and things like that. But they could have easily had another game on at least today because there's a public holiday tomorrow. I think they've really missed a trick there, and I really like that idea. Like a mini gather round sort of where you just go up to your two sort of states, and that would work really well. I don't know what they were thinking with all this.
For me,
so I think on top of that as well, sorry, Alex, the point being, Stats Guy hits it right on the head, right? The simple idea of an auspicious date to start your season. If it's Labor Day in Victoria, bang on. Because if you think about the states, the way that they always sort of start their college football season is around their version of Labor Day, or at least like the one that's at the very start of September, right? It's literally that first weekend. You go, cool. We all know that when this public holiday this weekend hits, it's the start of footy season, and away you go. This shouldn't be so hard, Alex.
Well, just for me, is like just thinking of the country as a whole. What, it's only a public holiday in Victoria and South Australia. Like being from Sydney, literally got told last week, oh, public holiday Monday night. Oh, cool. Thinking of the TV viewership, if you played a game tomorrow afternoon in Melbourne, people in Sydney, Queensland, wherever else, probably not watching the game because they're at work. So the AFL is big on the TV revenue and the numbers there, so it probably doesn't help that. Even if you play a game tomorrow night, it probably helps. But even a game this afternoon at Adelaide, before tomorrow's the Adelaide Cup, so you can bring it into a whole weekend of sport. Like, I know horse racing and AFL do coexist. It's like, bam, horse racing, AFL, it works like we do with grand final weekend here. Could do that, but I just think the tomorrow afternoon game wouldn't work. I've loved the opening round because no games have overlapped. That's been awesome. But I feel like every team should have played.
Yeah. You can also just do that regularly. But I think especially when you got 5 days, if you're going to go into the Monday, you know what the AFL should do? Just go, hey, every state that we're going to play in, put them in a headlock and go, give us a public holiday. Move it. I don't care. Cool. You can't tell me that the AFL doesn't have enough political pressure to start putting public holidays when they need it. Righto, let's do some game wraps. Game wraps. That's right. Game wraps from the weekend. If you cast your mind back to Thursday, Alex's beloved Sydney ran right over the top of the Melbourne Demons, 12-14-86 to 9-10-64. The 9-10 is a bit of a classic one there for Melbourne, right? Because they started off very slowly anyway. And it was a big win for the Swans at home, Thursday night, big opener, especially with a couple of their dudes not exactly firing and missing a bunch of big names as well. Alex, take us through it.
Well, the humidity there was apparently absolutely ridiculous. I got messages from a few mates in the stand saying, we're sitting here and we're sweating. This is gross. So you can understand why the ball was a bit like a cake of soap.
It's like a wet weather game, yeah.
Yeah. For me, the biggest thing about this is the Swans ran out of game. Last year, they led it 3/4 times, 17 times, and only won 10 or 11 times. So real good for the Swans to actually hit the ground running and actually run out a game for the first time in what feels like 18 months. The D's forward line didn't take any of the opportunities they had in the first half. I think they were 1-8 at one point. So I'm also going to say they have no forward line. It's an issue. But they still got the ball in there a lot. So it's a bit of yin and yang. It's like 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. You've got to take advantage of opportunities. But when Jacob Van Rooyen can't get a touch, Josh Shackey looks slower than Jim, who's got a broken foot at the moment. It's not good. Clayton Oliver I thought he was fantastic. He'll be much better for the run. He's going to be very fit and will be a SuperCoach pointer later for Stats Guy. But I think the biggest thing out of this for me was the plan that the Swans had for Max Gawn. They beat the crap out of him from the opening siren.
Yeah.
And in the last quarter, he was like, I'm done. I can't do anything. And Brody Grundy went, sweet, I'm going to take over and win this game. It was a great plan from the Swans. Everything that they'd sort of planned out came off. I don't think Errol Goulden having a super quiet game and the 3 tall forwards doing not much in the first half wasn't a part of it. But as far as stopping Max Gawn and having Grundy dominate, big tick. Massive win for the Swans and also overall on the ladder. And concerns for the Demons.
Yeah. Grundy got
that was the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah. That was absolutely
the concerns about the Demons sort of forward line problems. I think I was bemoaning the simple fact that on Thursday's show, and Wednesday show, I ended up tipping Melbourne just because of their defense and like going, no, it's fine. But before that, I'd always tip Sydney. So because I'm like, oh, but Melbourne can't kick a winning score. I basically just turned myself around and ended up losing. Great job by me. Stats guy, any takeaways for you?
Oh, you already touched on it, both of you, about Gordon just getting demolished by Grundy. Even in Supercoach, Grundy doubled his score. I don't think anyone would have picked that. And he just had a good game plan. I know Gordon at the end, though, wasn't even just to do with Grundy. He copped 2 in the ribs, 1 in the hip. I feel like he was just copping it left, right, and center from every single player. So he was a bit stiff there, and I think he'll bounce back. But Grundy was absolutely awesome. I think he was the difference. Oh, and then actually the other one that we haven't mentioned is Nick Blakey. The Lizard was absolutely, he was slippery. He loved the slippery conditions, the Lizard. So he was absolutely awesome off half back. He was just slithering through every single part of the ground and just set up so many goals. So yeah, loved a bit of the Lizard.
How did the teams not know he's always going to go to his left foot? Like, honestly, if he's running...
I know, every time.
He's going to go there every time. And I also didn't mention, the D's were missing arguably 6 of their best 23. So I saw a lot of people going, oh, the season's ruined. It's like, it's one game. You can lose one game. And there's a lot of positives the Demons take out of it. Also, Stephen May kept them in that game in the first half, which I didn't mention. He was fantastic. He wasn't there. This one could have been up by about 10 goals.
Yep.
Nice one. Sydney, Melbourne. Good start to the year. Fun game. Then it sort of wasn't. A really fun game, however, was Brisbane Carlton 86-85. My beloved Blues 13-8. 13-8 to 12-13. They just sneaked by thanks to my best mate, Harry Mackay. I've never said a bad word about him in my life. I literally did not text you, gentlemen, as this game was going on, saying that he was cooked. You can't prove anything. What a win. Carlton go up to the Gabatoir, give them their first loss since, 2022?
Since the Demons beat them in round 19.
Right, yeah.
46 points down. Now, here's a trick. Listen to the footy when your team is getting beaten on the radio is substantially easier to deal with than watching them. Because I watched the last quarter and a half of this game on TV, which was fantastic from a Carlton perspective.
True.
The first half, however, listening to on the radio made me want to drive into a tree. So it was actually very, very handy to go, this is great, and it's a great setup. Because even rewatching this game, I still got super angry in the first half, even though I knew the result. Like, it was so infuriating watching this game and how badly the Blues cooked this in the first quarter and a half. I'm just like tearing my hair out. And it's like, Jim, you know they won. I'm like, I know, but this sucked.
The first half was horrible.
Like, it was one of the most inept, gross displays of footy you'll see. But then, of course, like Sam Doherty tears an ACL, plays out the half just because he's a lunatic.
How did he keep playing? Yeah.
They pulled out a couple of goals just before the end of the first half, right? And that was the sort of key to the Blues. And then the Lions couldn't hit anything literally at all. Like, there was like some crazy stat about how like the Blues had kicked, eight goals straight or something to 8 points. And it was just absolute chaos in the second half. The back and forth was very fun because I think essentially it was the Blues manufacturing goals out of absolutely thin air, but then just giving them the midfield clamps, which is exactly what you have to do to Brisbane. And it's essentially like, this is the greatest part about this Blues win. The first win up there at the Gabba against the Lions since 2013. But it's also 3 straight wins where they've done this exact same thing, right? Against Sydney, Melbourne, and now Brisbane. Of course, they did lose a prelim to Brisbane in between that. But the point has been made on Twitter that's like, this might be the 3 best wins for the Blues in over a decade, and they've come back to back.
Maybe since 1999.
So I'll take it.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, that was also my point was it might be the 3 best wins we've ever strung back to back, like since the 99 season. So prove me wrong.
Well, you
but 46 points down to have like,
so it's not back to back to back.
But they're 3 wins.
Yeah.
Like, but if you're just
Your
going to take
last
3
3
wins
you're
that you
saying.
want,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So to win it by a point off Harry Mackay of all people going back and just slotting a drop punt.
Can confirm.
Just me.
I said in the group text as he was lining up, I was like, he's going to nail this.
Yeah.
Yep.
He did.
But overall, like, I think Brisbane are really good, but they still have some big questions about that team, right? And we sort of saw it in the grand final. They lose Kitty Coleman as well to a knee. But I don't know. Have you got any questions there you want to throw out there?
I think
you guys.
Yeah, I think that there's just it's weird to say given their forward line, but Brisbane do lack like this real knockout punch. Like when they're playing, when they've won all these games at home, like there's been games where they've just streeted away, but you've never felt like entirely secure. Like there was that game last year against the D's where the lights went out and then all of a sudden the D's kicked 6 goals to get back within a goal. Against Collingwood, it was almost like, oh yeah, we're just going to do enough to hold you. Like you're holding your little cousin down by the head and he's swinging and he can't get you. There was a game against the Swans where, like me as a Swans fan, we were going terribly. I'm like, that's a really good performance. Like they've gone well all night. It happened in the grand final. I don't know what it is, but there's up forward, you've got Joe, Chucky, and Hipwood, but they're not scary, if that makes sense. Like you're never going to have them like late. You're not going to go, oh yeah, they're going to kick a miracle winner or something. Just like they're really good, but that X factor is missing. And it seems weird to say with the Chucky Cameron in the forward line. I don't know. They're beatable, very beatable.
I feel like that's been a little bit too reactive. I think when, as Jaymz mentioned, they did kick the 8 points in a row. You got Chucky Cameron, who I think he missed 2 or 3 in a row himself. He's not going to do that most games. So I think if he kicks at least 2 of them, they probably would have won. And then we wouldn't be having this conversation of them being that. They shouldn't have. Yeah, they were horrible, obviously, to lose. You
shouldn't lose
46 points up. But I think just them inaccurate kicking literally cost them. They probably should have scored a few goals while Carlton were on that run. They were getting enough inside 50s. They were getting enough shots on goal. And then Carlton just looked a lot better because they were converting. I feel like that's not going to happen very often for Brisbane, and it was just a bit of a one-off, especially Charlie Cameron missing so many shots. You don't see that very often.
Kerno was fantastic. Obviously, Mackay was great. Cripps was absolutely
nuts.
Unreal. But it was like the likes of, Razio, Fantasia and stuff like that. Like Cottrell just popped up, had some incredible moments. Like it was one of the more inspiring performances from Carlton's depth that we sort of saw at times last year as well. So without Walsh, without Weeders, Doc goes down. It was very impressive. Gold Coast, Richmond, the Dimma Bowl. The Dimma Bowl looked like it was cooked like a servo dimmy. I'll tell you that much. 99, 14-15 Gold Coast kick to 9-6 Richmond, 60. So it's a 39-point win, and Richmond had 15 shots on goal to 29. It is a smashing. Take us through this one there, Stats Guy.
Well, I was a bit annoyed that my big call was 40 plus this week. I'm lucky I didn't have a bet on it, and they won by 39. Absolutely filthy with that. The Suns, they were up by 61 points at one stage. The crowd, most of the crowd was Richmond, so they weren't happy with that at all. They were booing and things like that. Then Richmond sort of got on a bit of a roll, and everyone's going, oh, maybe the Suns are back to their old ways a little bit. They held on, obviously, to win by 39, but I think it was a bit of a roller coaster. Dimma was pretty happy as well. He brought that ferocity and forward pressure. I was just sitting there with my mate watching the game. I'm going, this is exactly how Richmond played when they were in their prime. Just lots of forward pressure. The tackling pressure inside that front half was awesome. And sort of played exactly like Richmond's style against the Tigers. And the Tigers, as I think Alex is going to mention, they just lack that depth. The forward line was horrible. And just even Tim Taranto, I thought he was going to have a decent game. He was nowhere to be seen. And they don't look good at all, the Tigers.
Alex, how do you feel about this one?
I feel like you saw my main takeaway is you saw the best and the worst of the Gold Coast Suns in one game. Yeah. That first half was just like, wow, this team's going to play finals this year. And then they've had the atypical Gold Coast fade out where they gave up 6 straight goals in the third quarter. But the margin never got to like less than 4 goals. So you always felt that Richmond were going to run out of steam. It was that if Gold Coast can just get 1 or 2 settlers, they're home because Richmond were never going to run them down. It's great for Gold Coast. It's also good that there's stuff to work on because it's not like, oh, this is all well and great. But in that third quarter, they did have the same amount of inside 50s as Richmond, I think, or maybe 1 or 2 less. So they were getting the ball in there plenty. They just weren't converting. But the way that they just ran through the middle and dominated this Richmond team was something to behold. And we talked about it before the weekend where we thought Richmond would struggle. I didn't think they'd struggle this badly. They were just blown off the park. And it's I know Dusty and
verbal meme
to come back, but it's going to be a long year if you're a Tigers
still
fan.
Going to struggle.
Verbal meme, the entire room of dudes holding me back, me grabbing the microphone to go, Tigers wooden spoon.
Yeah.
No.
It's just Tigers wooden spoon. Like, that's all I want to do. I'm just like, they have these moments where they looked awesome. So I don't think they are going to win the wooden spoon, but that's my brain right now. GWS Collingwood flying through the rest of this. GWS, now this is my big call prior to this game, smashed them. Guess what?
Can't believe
GWS smashed them. 18-6-1-14 to 11-16-82. It's a lot of shots on goal for Collingwood, but it also didn't really feel like they ever really controlled this game, right? So GWS just sort of have every answer. Take us through it, Alex.
Yeah, so Collingwood actually had more of the ball in the first quarter and really didn't take advantage of their opportunities. And that sort of summed up the night, because we love an expected score, but expected score had Collingwood actually winning this game over GWS. But watching the game, that doesn't tell the story. Once GWS got clicked into gear in the second quarter, it was phenomenal to watch. The tsunami was back. Kelly, Whitfield, Green just running through their midfield, a lot of run and carry, and deep entries into Callum Brown, Cadman, Jesse Hogan, all looking fit, taking clunks. It was unbelievable. And just to blow Collingwood off the park like that, and then to come out at after halftime, I thought, oh, Collingwood are going to fight here. Collingwood kicked 3 behinds in the third quarter. They got smashed. That is the only takeaway from this game. GWS killed them. But for Collingwood, when they made their sub, which was Tom Mitchell, I found this really interesting. Scott Pendlebury, who we were told wasn't going to play, played and looked like he shouldn't have played. He was well short of a gallop and looked
slow.
sore.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Mason Cox later, but he was pathetic. Ash Johnson just... If Dan McStay was there, Ash Johnson's not playing the game, and I don't think Ash Johnson will play next week. So to not sub one of them out when they brought Johnny Noble on, for me, was a bit of a mistake, because you weren't going to beat the Giants taking a mark down the line with Mason Cox and Ash Johnson. And everything that Collingwood tried to do, GWS just went, clamps, and just shut them down. The forward line is the issue for me with Collingwood. I know they've had 30 shots on goal, but there's no big target. And Sam Taylor just had an absolute night out, and they just rebounded and carried like there was no tomorrow. Lockie Schultz was average. Bobby Hill was average. It's just, you need a big forward that's going to be consistent. And if Myercheck's not on his game, they're in trouble.
Yeah, I think before we go to you there, Stats Guy, I think that's kind of the point for me. Like, I looked at this game thinking, the premiership hangover, this is going to be like the worst possible game for Collingwood to get into a groove, because GWS are going to go, no chance. Bang. And off they went. And it's exactly what happened. What did you think, Stats Guy?
I think Alex already touched on it, but their forward line, GWS, looks like the best, most cohesive forward line that we saw this weekend. Obviously, we haven't seen all the other teams yet, but it could be the best forward line in the comp in, in a month or two time. But they were, absolutely awesome. Cadman taking marks. It was awesome to see in his first game. You got their midfield as well. Their midfield absolutely dominated. You got Green in there, who Alex tipped for the Brownlow, and he looked absolutely awesome, was up there with best on. And then Callum Brown, he dominated the end of last year. A lot of people probably aren't talking him up enough. And he's got 5 goals and absolutely killing it. So, get around Callum Brown. And GWS really surprised me, because I thought Collingwood could lose this, but not by that much. They just didn't take their chances in the first half.
The tsunami, off we go. But yeah, look, I think Alex hit on it really quickly, right? Schultz had 3 behinds. I think a couple of those were really obviously pretty kickable. And you're
first half as well,
Right, off we go. He hits those and off we go. Yeah. But either way, take it away there, Alex.
Yeah, we've got to find some positive. This isn't just a beat up on Collingwood session. The positives, Darcy Cameron looked really,
isn't it?
Well, yes, kind of. But Darcy Cameron looked really fit, and he was really good in the ruck up against Briggsy. He'll be really important this year for Collingwood. Of course, Nick Dacos was good, but he did go off with a knock late in the game, so that'll be interesting to see coming into a short turnaround on Friday night. But you just got to think, if that forward line doesn't click, and Jordan De Goey honestly felt like he wasn't out there either. It was a really weird game, and it was the worst possible game for Collingwood to start their season with.
Did De Goey go on a secret Bali trip before the game? I'm not sure, because he didn't look like himself at all.
Spent the entire off-season in Bali, by the way he played. Right. Full credit to the boys. The best win that we saw, probably the Bag, is obviously coming back from 46 down. And honourable mention's got to go to GWS, because they just handled the Premiers. It was a 1 point in it when they played in last year's prelim. The Bag has obviously got ran over by Brisbane in last year's prelim, but gave them it was like the opposite of this year's game, right? Where the Baggers took a bit of a lead and were looking really, really good in that prelim, and then fell apart. It was the opposite round this time. So pretty happy with that. Full credit to the boys. The Baggers, the fight, GWS taken to the Premiers. Love to see it. Best on ground of the week. 3 votes. Who are you giving it to? I'm giving it to Harry Mackay. For all the guff that Harry Mackay has gone out and copped just from me, like to go out and kick the game-winning goal, steady as you like. It had a bit of a wobble in it, and I'm telling you, I wasn't wildly confident when it was in the air. But the fact that you think about the things that would have been running through his head as he went back to kick that goal, and he still slotted it, absolutely massive gear. It also came after he tried to snap a goal earlier and kicked it into the defender's feet. So, yeah, I wasn't full of confidence, but he did it. It was amazing. And to hear like all those Blue supporters out there like me just having all the doubts in the world just be assuaged for 1 week, you're like, wait, if Harry Mackay can kick straight, we're unbeatable. Like, that's the kind of the vibe in my brain. So 2 votes, obviously Callum Brown. And then because he kicked the bag, he looked fantastic. And he's like the sort of secret sauce on that team, right? Like if he can just sort of be that dude who kicks just a couple of snags each week, fills that gap, they're going to be unreal. And then half vote each. I'm just going to stay all forwards, apparently. Jack Lukosius and Ben King. They did a job in that first half on the on the Tigers. Like it was Ben King specifically, like the way that he sort of went, actually, I'm bigger than everybody here. I'm really good. Check this out. And then the coach just went, wait a minute, so am I. This is awesome. And like they just put the Tigers to the sword in the first half. So there we go. Stats guy, who's your pick?
Then 3 votes definitely goes to Matty Rao. I don't know how he didn't fit in your top 3 there, Jim. 33 disposals, 26 contested. He's just an absolute bull. And then he got 20 clearances, which is the most since 1998. They only started measuring those stats in the 90s. So he's got the second most ever, according to the stats, with 20 clearances. He was an absolute bull, and he changed the game. He was the reason in the first half that the Suns were winning by so much. Obviously, the guys up forward were kicking goals and kicking accurately, but Rao was just, every time it came out of the middle, it was because of Matt Rao. He was awesome. I haven't got much. I'll go 2 votes. I'll go Callum Brown. He was awesome as well. And then 1 vote. Who else have we got? Tom Green as well. He was great in the midfield.
Nice one. Alex?
Yeah, I'm going Callum Brown for the 5 against Collingwood. It's the 3rd highest score that Collingwood have given up since McRae took over. So massive effort from a 4th or 5th forward in a team to kick 5 goals. Also, Jesse Hogan with 4 and Daniels with 4. But for my 2 and 1, 2 votes, Brody Grundy. He absolutely obliterated Max Gawn and was one of the keys in winning that game for the Swans. And 1 vote, Isaac Heaney. He was fantastic. It's probably one of the best games I've seen him play since middle of 2022. Great game. He was everywhere. He looks fit and raring to have a big season after what was, let's be honest, it was pathetic by his standards in 2023.
I love it. So this is the AFL Today Brownlow tracker, but it's going to be our very own AFL Today Brownlow across the season of who's going to have the most votes. So.
Yeah.
I love it. Who's old mate, no mates? Really quickly, Sam Doherty does an ACL and an MCL. That's horrible for a dude who's gone through so much already.
I know.
And Kitty Coleman as well. So basically, they're not old mate, no mates, because the exact thing that came out for both of them straight away was this sucks immensely because they are both legendary dudes. Kitty Coleman's on like the massive rise after last year's finals run. But it's their knees are the old mate, no mates. It's like, you guys suck. What are you doing, knees? Come on, man.
Come on,
like,
knees.
This is brutal.
A lot of ACL.
And I'm also like, my point is also just like, all right, so I'm just like, at this point, looking at the grass, going, what did you do? What did you do? Come on, jeez. The gabba. Oh, bloody, I'll tell you. So it's pretty tough. Like, I'm a big grass expert when it comes to knees. I just want to keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on the gabba for the rest of the year. But obviously, old mate, no mates is probably the pies and the absolute number the Giants did on them on social media all week. In the
Best
lead up to
social
this
media
game.
team in the business, the Giants one.
They were absolutely fantastic. Tore him to shreds. Loved it. Stats guy?
Different angles sort of to your usual old mate, no mates, but Jack Ross, does he have no mates at Richmond? He's always the sub. He's left out of multiple grand finals. Finally got a new coach. He's like, oh, new coach. Surely this new coach will say, Jack, you're right in the team. And he's the sub again. I feel for him. He came on. He wasn't amazing, but I think he's a solid player. Richmond have no depth at the moment. I think Jack Ross is a solid player that shouldn't be the sub. Alex wrote down as well, same for Noah Cumberland. Cumberland hasn't been as stiff because he's still young. Jack Ross, he's getting a bit older now, but he's in his prime still. I think he's probably just so stiff. Maybe he has no mates at the club. Even the coach doesn't like him, so he's old mate, no mates this week.
Alex, your old mate, no mates?
Yeah, well, my Noah Cumberland one, just quickly. Well, he's a small forward who adds a lot of pressure and kicks goals. Yeah. Richmond didn't pick a small forward who creates pressure and kicks goals. Sure. Old mate, no mates. Easy. Mason Cox. He talked absolute junk for the last 6 months about it being a livestock oval, so much so the GWS Giants created a petting zoo for him. He would have been more useful feeding the little animals there than he was on the ground last night. One possession up until halftime, which was just a little uncontested mark on the wing. He ran through the GWS pre-game ruck warm-up, which was weird, and Shane Mumford went, "Oi, do that again, I'm going to smash you."
Mummy
And
would
that
smash him.
obviously scared Mason Cox into submission because if there's a worst on ground, it was quite clearly him. It just had no influence on the game. If you're going to talk smack on social media, you might want to be a good footballer because if you weren't 6'9", you wouldn't be on a list.
Facts.
Yeah, mummy's like, hey, ever seen a 6'9" American fly? It's like, oh, now I have. Yes, once.
Yes.
Off we go. All right. Why I can't stand. Let's do it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
basically Vent Sesh 2.0, but really this
Pretty
one
much.
is like it's a small thing, but look, I think this really came home to roost last night during the GWS Collingwood. Oh, how many points do you say you have to be down before you don't have a chance, per team?
Oh,
I'll tell you what, probably like 55.
He does it every game.
What I don't
Yeah.
What I don't need in opening round of AFL any season, it does not matter. You don't need to convince us there's a chance of a comeback every 2 seconds. A, let the game breathe. We've all got eyes. This isn't radio. We're fine. We're watching this on TV, this one. On top of that, though, we haven't had footy in 6 months. We've been walking through the desert. This is like water to a starving, absolutely just a man who's been out there wandering the Sahara and he'll just come up and going, here you go, bloke. Off you go, mate. He's like, thank God I've got footy back. You don't need to sell it to me. You know? Oh, Jim, guess what? They could still come back. I know that because I'm a grown-up. I understand how comebacks work. We quite literally saw that the other day, didn't we? We get it. We don't need you to sell this aspect to it because they're either going to come back or they're not. You can go, because basically what you're saying at this point is like, there's a point at which this game is over. Don't tell us that. That's actually working against what you're trying to say.
Yes.
That's the dumbest thing in the world. It's like, oh, once they're down 55, you can just turn this off because they can't come back. Like, how dumb do you have to be? Don't convince me that I need to keep watching. I just will always be watching if you don't say, oh, actually, Jim, you should probably turn it off now. Simple as that. Horrible commentary across the weekend. It's like they were out of practice. JB was horrible on the Friday game, I think. I had that horrible mistake where I'm like, which commentary team am I watching on this for the Brisbane Carlton game? And then the same thing, I had the wrong one, I feel like, again for the Sunday team. So commentary, lift your game. It was horrible. Alex, what do you think?
yeah. Well, just following on from that, like calling for a comeback when there's 17 minutes left in the game and saying, 55 points when literally that team hasn't kicked 55 points yet. Statistical probability says you are not going to double your score in 17 minutes from the previous 75 to 80. Watching the game as well, I know BT's a Collingwood guy, but watching that game, you're like, no, like, what are you watching? There is no chance of a comeback here, but don't tell us that. But then it's also, just in general, I feel like AFL commentary, ever since Dennis and Bruce just stopped calling, has just stagnated and gone downhill on TV.
It has, yeah.
It just needs an overhaul. There's too many inside jokes about whatever they're talking about and not enough calling of the game with just some horrendously bad takes as well. Like last night, Braden Maynard gave away a free kick and got in a little scuffle with Toby Green because it's Braden Maynard and Toby Green, fair enough. But then BT's like, and Dale Thomas as well, like, great professional footy holding up the game, blah, blah. It's like, you see the replay.
What?
Braden Maynard
just fine.
It was embarrassing.
in and around Toby Green's face and he slipped a sneaky elbow in. It's just like, okay, we get it. You like Collingwood, but surely like Richo or someone else goes, shouldn't that be a free kick or a 50? Because it is holding up the game, which is a 50-meter penalty. So I don't know what it is. Like add in Joel Selwood, who adds nothing as a special commentator. Great player, seems like a lovely bloke. But he's like, they just need to kick more goals. Well, yes, we know that. Thank you. Last night, Aaron Phillips on the boundary was very good talking about how GWS were playing through Collingwood's press. Stuff like that is great. Like, give Alistair Nicholson and James Bennett more time on TV than let BT and Brayshaw call on radio where they're great. But on TV, it's just sound bites and it adds nothing to the game. On Friday night, I tuned in my SEN to the TV so I could listen to Jared and Andy Marr call the game instead of the TV group.
There you go.
It was horrible. Like some of the bias that we saw on Friday night as well. It's like you've got Luke Hodge just going, "Oh, I don't want these guys to win,"
Yeah.
and you've got like JB just going, "I'm not even excited for this game." It's like, this is the opening Friday night football game of the season. What are you doing anyway? Stats guy, why you can't stand?
Oh, why I can't stand Mason Cox. Shouldn't be playing footy at the moment. He's horrible. He talks a lot of smack. Alex already talked about it. We don't have to go into it too much. He does a lot more on Instagram than he does on the footy field. So I'll just leave it at that. He just needs to lift and back up his talk.
Oh, finally.
Nice one. All right. I know that Alex is probably going to bring up umpiring or something, and I feel like we just need a bingo card for why I can't stand. It's like we could almost fill it out each week. Bingo! Yes, we get it. Umpires are going to have a rough one, I reckon, in week 1, but I think we'll see how they go after next week before we dig into it. What do you reckon?
Oh, just more. Nice. It was more when Sam Taylor got cleaned up when the ball went out. It's like we're trying to get rid of the bump and preventing concussions and things like that. The way Taylor's head whiplashed looked pretty bad. It was 3 foot in front of the umpire, and he doesn't blow a free kick. He's like, "No, ball was in play." It's like, dude, the ball rolled past you. So just stuff like that.
That was,
not good.
That was an egregious miss, and like, especially again, the commentary sort of like glanced over it. They just went, "Oh, yeah, it was probably a bit late."
Talk about that. I know.
Isn't the entire point of what we're doing like to keep talking about this so it doesn't happen again? Anyway, all right, quickly, stats boy. Who are the biggest standouts from your SuperCoach weekend? What are you looking at?
I'm going to look at Errol Gordon from the first game. Obviously didn't have his best match, only 77. Still an okay score, but for his high standards. So lots of people have him in their team. I think he was around that 50, 60%. He's going to drop a little bit because in 3 weeks' time, his price is going to drop. So for anyone listening to this, if you got Errol Gordon, I'd take him out of your side, get someone around that same price, and then you'll get him for about 30K cheaper or something like that in a couple of weeks' time, which would be really handy. His break-even was 111. And only got 77. So he's going to drop in price, which would be very handy. Another one that was in everyone's team about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Jared Lyons from the Lions, 258,000 only now because he was the sub pretty much every game last year. He looked back to his best. I know this is a bit of a risky one. I saw Al Patton actually talking about it on the SuperCoach official stuff on Instagram. He said he's still not convinced about him, but it's just an interesting one to follow maybe the next couple of weeks. He got 106, finally playing a full game, possibly back to his best, and he's really cheap. So maybe just watch over the next couple of weeks. And then the other one I really want to talk about was Will Powell. He was awesome on the weekend. Maybe a pod primo back option. I think he's over 500,000, which is a little bit too much, I think, but he got 123 points. He was taking intercept mark after intercept mark for the Suns. Could be a bit of a Podsy Adley for you there, Jim, I reckon.
I love a good Podsy Adley. I also like to look at Took. I think what he was doing in the middle was really good. It's like one of those ones where you look at this game and just go, like I had some reservations about him. Like he wasn't in my team going into this week, but he's like one of those dudes when you come out of this week, you go, oh, might find some room.
Yeah.
And obviously Tom Green absolutely smashed it too.
Good.
So I think we've got a question there about Gawn.
Yeah, I just put in there, like, given how Gawn did get beaten up around the contest all night, and at the end of the game, he was just absolutely lethargic. Can you pick him, given his price ranges? He's someone you avoid when you've got English, Big Briggsy, Grundy, and even Cameron last night. He was good. He can roll forward and kick a couple of goals as well. Like, I don't have what their scores were in front of me, but just watching the games over the weekend, of all the ruckmen, Naismith included, you don't want to have. I wouldn't pick Gawn personally. He's got the game plan against him now. It's just smash him every chance.
I feel like this happened when Gawn and Grundy were both at their prime. The only time Gawn wouldn't get 100 or would get 110 or less was against Grundy, and then all the other weeks he'd still get 120, 130. So I think you still pick him. I think the only player that knows him that well, because he was in the same team, because they've battled each other for the last 8 years, is Grundy. So I'm still leaning towards picking Gawn just because I think against everyone else, even if they try that game plan, they're not as good as Grundy. So I'd say still pick him. But over the next couple of weeks, he will be one to watch because he is expensive.
I reckon risk him till after his bye because he's got Tim English this weekend.
That's another way of putting it. I forgot about that.
Primo backman kick out king Tim English. Right, there you go though. That is it. AFL Today for opening round 0. Footy's back. It's done. What a wild, weird weekend it was, because I think we came into this one going, there's a couple of pretty obvious standout favourites And then the Blues came out of nowhere. Sydney absolutely like ran over the top of Melbourne. But the cool thing is we get to do it all again next week for round 1, starting on Thursday. So we, of course, will be back on Wednesday and Thursday this week to set up all your AFL gear, because that's what we do on AFL Today. We're covering everything. That's what we do. So thank you to Stats Guy and thank you to Alex.
Cheers. Thank you.
And remember to smash a like across all the socials for AFL Today AU. That's right, AFL Today AU, or just AFL Today Show. Search it, you'll find it. It's across Facey, IG. Well, Facey, we'll get back to you on that. IG, X, Threads, TikTok. But of course, you can see all this and hear it all on YouTube. So subscribe, like, star it, all that good stuff. You can like all our other shows as well. Cricket Today podcast, the Football Today podcast, NBA Australia. This one, it's all good. Better check them all out. Like, subscribe, and all do that sort of stuff. So get around them all, like Tony Plugger-Locker getting around a petrol station pie from Bungaree in 1986, I'll tell you that much. But either way, the best part is footy's been back. That's it for us. We'll catch you next week. Well, this week, I guess, because it's still Sunday, but we'll see you on Wednesday for more AFL Today. Until then, look after yourselves.